Hey, welcome back. Welcome for the first time. You have made it. You're here at the live stream of consciousness. My name is Michael Zinn, and I have decided that this right here is my little slice of the moment that I have created with intention and have invited you into. And if you're out there, I am so happy that you are. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see Tim is out there and Ninja Kitty's out there. What's up, folks? Good to always see your faces, kind of, I guess. I don't know. Just to feel your presence. It's always good. But welcome to the live stream of consciousness. It's Thursday, March 23rd. And it's spring. So here we are. I'm moving the live stream forward. I'm feeling good about everything that's going on. And I'm here to have another amazing conversation and share it with you. So please join in if it resonates with you. And as always, if you're new and you like what you hear, subscribe and all of that stuff. Tonight's guest is actually somebody who I'm just meeting for the first time, but I did see on Sunshine's show, The Ripple Connection, and I saw her and I saw her partner, who was a guest on the show, Davy Joe Benessi, and it was just an amazing conversation. So I'm expecting another amazing conversation. She is so many things, an intrinsic alchemist. I'm curious to hear all about what that is exactly. I mean, I have my ideas, but I want her to say it in her words. She's she's just a healer and also a fire dancer, which is also always great. I love, me, I'm the visual guy. I would love to do a photo session of a fire dancer. But anyway, welcome to the show, LEXI MUCCI. How are you doing?
Hello, blessings, everyone. Thank you for having me, Michael. It's good to be
Oh, thank
here.
you
I'm
for
doing
being
well.
here. Yes, and thank you for coming with those blessings. I think I'm surprised, but that's the first time anyone's come like whoosh, blessings, giving us blessings. Thank you so much. That was awesome. I love that entrance. So I don't know if you're familiar with the show. Maybe you are a little bit from Davy's visit, but there's a couple of orders of business I like to take care of before we really get into it. And I guess it kind of helps us get into it. But one is that this is the live stream of consciousness. I love talking about what that means, on all the different layers of its meaning, with language. But the first question I always ask is, what is consciousness? What is consciousness to you, Lexi Mucci?
Consciousness to me is, I would say, awareness. Awareness beyond so we all move around thinking that we're a person, right? We have all these ideas of what we think we are, and
Mhm,
oftentimes we kind of think that what we are is what we do,
mhm,
and the people in our lives, the relationships that we have, whatever it is, we've created this whole like person, right?
mhm,
Consciousness is a layer beyond that. It is the one that
mm,
witnesses all of that happening on the grand scheme of
mhm,
life,
mhm,
or the grand screen of life.
mhm.
Right? So consciousness is there whether you are there or not. It is always there. It is ever present. It is
Ooh,
infinite, and it is actually you.
that's awesome. I love that answer. I'm curious about, again, I have my own ideas, but what you mean exactly of it's there whether you are or not. What is that about? Or is that going to be something we're going to talk about in a little bit?
Yeah, we can speak to that now.
Okay.
So what I mean by it's there whether you are there or not, it's again coming back to, we have this idea of who we are, and we think it's the body, we think it's the mind,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So beyond the body, beyond the mind, is consciousness, and
mhm.
it's there whether the body or the mind is there.
Gotcha. Okay, that I gotcha. That's actually not what I thought, but I totally get it now, and that totally makes sense. Um, and I'll tell you what I thought a little bit later, because there's a second part of the question that also I think will lead into everything that we want to talk about, and that is there a particular moment or story, or is it something that perhaps was just always there, uh, when you realized that there was more to existence than what you've been taught in school and kind of, the things that your parents teach you how to survive in life.
Was there a particular moment?
Mhm.
This particular moment when I was like 5 years old comes to mind. I was always very in touch with God. Um, and I remember as a young girl, I was very much so in touch with God, even more so than like in my middle life. And now I've kind of returned to this relationship, you could say.
What's up, sunshine? What's up, Donna?
And
Welcome, welcome.
so I guess that moment I can speak to. I told a lie, right? I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I was in school and I told a lie, and this lie like just kind of encompassed my being, and I couldn't handle it. I was like 5 years old, and I'm like, I gotta let it out. I gotta let it out. So I told my teacher. I started crying to her. I'm like, I lied. I didn't do this thing that I said I did. And I remember this moment because I had my grandmother come, and I don't know exactly like when she come to school. I don't know, but I remember us praying and asking forgiveness for God
Mm,
to God,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I just remember that moment was very significant to me
mhm,
because I don't think now there's like this man in the sky that I have to ask forgiveness to, right? But
mhm,
that
mhm,
essence of feeling almost
mhm,
like guilt and then feeling that guilt removed upon prayer.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So in those younger moments, I just always felt the presence of a divine force that was bigger than the me. Again, like the
Right,
body
right.
me.
Right. I love it. I love it. And that actually made me think and remember back to kind of my own. It wasn't a specific moment, but it was a belief. I was not. I was raised in the Jewish faith, but I was never really super religious. And then, when I was given the choice to kind of, you know, continue or not, I just said it's not for me. But deep within myself, and like you said, it was just kind of a feeling. I knew that there were two forces, good and evil, and that you could choose to align with either one of those. And I knew, just like you said, like when you lied, that's kind of a low vibration, right? And it leans towards the evil, right? And you know how that felt, and you said, you know what, I got to choose something different, because yeah, that just totally, that's how it resonates with me. It's like the
Mhm.
good and the evil, and what you choose, and not only what you choose, but how it feels, when you align yourself with that vibration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And what are you feeding? What are you feeding in your life?
right, right.
Because I feel like what we feed, we attract more of.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, mostly it definitely mostly works out that way, you know what I mean? Or it really does work out that way. It's all a part of perception, and really making sure you're in control of that perception, or at least understand that perception.
Mm,
Something that we always talk about, and the reason I was excited about this is how everything is energy, and even a conversation like this is just you and I exchanging that energy, and not and in this case, which I think is why I love this platform so much, not just you and I, but all the people who are out there watching us, listening to us, are also kind of receiving this, and they get to even react. Like I see Jill out there saying hello to Sunshine. People are out there, they're at this virtual party. We're all hanging out, talking to an amazing, beautiful woman about her life. So I said a little bit about your life. I know you just about who you are and what you do. I know you just came back from an amazing retreat in Thailand. Um, but why don't you tell people who are out there? Some of them know what you do and who you are, but who exactly is Lexi Mucci, and why?
sure. Oh, it's a loaded question, because at the moment, I feel like I'm kind of letting go of everything that I thought I was, which is actually a really beautiful thing, kind of like this new beginning.
Hmm,
I feel like I've gone through a beautiful death of
hmm,
who I
hmm,
was, and kind of coming home to my truth, which is like, I don't know, how could I put a label on truth, right?
hmm,
How could I put
hmm,
a label on who Lexi is?
hmm,
Um,
hmm.
but I can speak to what I do and what I love to do.
Yes.
Um, So intrinsic alchemy, you mentioned before, you called me an intrinsic alchemist, which I
Yes.
love.
Yes.
Intrinsic alchemy is the name of my herbal business,
Hmm.
which developed during the pandemic. But I was actually a part of my life for many, many years before that. So I studied yoga at 17. I became a yoga teacher at 17. I
Wow.
went to school and continued this yoga teaching. It was always a part of my life. My mother was a yoga teacher, and I really started when I
Wow.
was 12. So very blessed in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's very
It's,
young.
yeah, yeah,
17 as a yoga teacher. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And so I guess I also rebelled a lot. And so
Mm.
my mother was a yoga teacher. So that was cool and everything, but I was like, who am I? I don't want to be what my mother was. And of
Mm.
course ended up like, okay, now I'm still into yoga. I'm a yoga
Right,
teacher.
right, right, right.
But at that time I was like, kind of like, I'm gonna do the opposite of whatever my mother does.
Okay.
And
For the sake of rebelling.
I traveled to Costa Rica, and I met a woman who was an herbalist.
Okay.
And I just kind of began studying herbs. I studied cacao when I was in Costa Rica. I
Mhm.
studied herbs when I was in New York, Long Island. I studied herbs in Portugal on a farm, a holistic health center farm.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so just kind of like studied herbs wherever I would go, studied holistic herbalism.
Okay.
And I started making different blends, different herbalism products for myself. At a young age, I was like also kind of an addict, I would say. And so I was always creating something to support my addictive habits. I was like, how can I
Okay.
create a little remedy to support my addictive habits? But the like funny thing about that is like I was kind of trying to replace my addiction with like an herbal addiction. So it never really worked until I purified the addiction itself. And we can get into that later.
Okay.
So I was always creating herbal products. First, when I was like maybe 18, it was like these sugar scrubs that you can scrub all over your body and lick off your liver. I had like a little like, I was like, lick off your liver, you can eat it.
So herbal sexual products.
No. But the point was that you could eat it because it was
Right, right, right. Edible,
a
edible. Right, right,
natural
right.
edible.
Right.
Um,
And good for you.
I mean, do what you want with it, but that wasn't the point. And then that expanded, right? So when I got sober during the pandemic, this is when it really expanded
Mm.
into tinctures and teas and smoke blends and
Mhm.
rolls of like cigarettes or whatever,
Mhm. Mhm.
herbal cigarettes, I guess you could
Mhm.
say. I
Mhm.
don't make them anymore, so I don't even know what to call them. Um, but yeah, I started working with CBD to support my addictive habits, started working with microdosing,
Mhm.
and this also became a part of intrinsic alchemy. So the name intrinsic alchemy came to be because I was going through this like deep inner transformation, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
And so not only am I working with herbs and alchemizing the herb into like a different potential,
Mhm.
right? Because you can like make tinctures and teas and so many different things with herbs, and that's alchemy.
Right.
um Especially like mixing different herbs to support one another. It's an amazing process. They
That's
support one
awesome. Yeah.
another and really amplifying the medicine within each one. And so that's alchemy. But I was also going through a deep intrinsic alchemy during that time as well.
Mm,
How
gotcha.
intrinsic alchemy came to be.
Ah, excellent, excellent. So, you were talking a lot about addiction and addictive personalities, and it's interesting to me. I mean, the spiritual community. I don't love using like catchphrases, but like people who are kind of uh, leaning more towards finding their spiritual side um, is so great because there are so many different perspectives, which is why I love the question of what is consciousness, because everybody has a little bit of a different piece of the puzzle to add to the answer, the ultimate answer. Um, but I definitely have heard some stories where people really hit bottom and do come from addiction, and and Davy Joe's story, even, coming from, you meet somebody like Davy Joe and he tells you, yeah, I used to beat the shit out of people. You're like, what? No way. Like, he's so loving, and you just, you stand next to him and you feel that loving vibration. You can't even imagine it. But there are a lot of stories who people who come from that, who have, you know, been in jail for 10 years, you know what I mean? But they came to this spirituality there, and recovered, or whatever, whatever the word is. I lost it right now. So tell me about addiction and how that comes into play here, and where your story might come
Sure.
from. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. It was so beautiful to hear, because a lot of us do come from suffering, right? Like,
Mhm.
suffering sometimes is the catalyst for
Mhm.
spiritual evolution, for us to be like, I'm done with my own shit. I'm
Mhm.
done with
Mhm.
it, and I'm going to choose something new.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of us move through addiction, whether it's to substances, or it's like a habit or food or a negative thought pattern. There's
Mhm.
so many addictive tendencies out there, whether it's a substance or not.
Mhm.
Mine was a substance.
Mhm.
So I remember, like, the first time I drank alcohol. I remember the first sip, the first time it like
Mhm.
touched my tongue. My aunt like tricked me. She pretended like it was water and it was wine, and I was like, ugh, and I spit it out. It was probably like 7 or 8,
Oh my
right? She
God.
thought it
Yeah.
was like harmless, but like I never forgot that moment. And so later on in my life, I guess around like 8th grade, 9th grade, I started drinking.
Mhm.
And right from the get-go, I was like really like going all in. And I had like a pretty traumatic thing happen to me when I was in 9th grade.
Mm.
Um, ended up in the hospital, and yeah, like in a coma for like 11 hours or something like that. I
Wow, in a
woke up,
coma.
and my parents were like standing over me. I almost got hypothermia. It was like a big thing. So I was grounded for life after that. For life,
Wow.
know.
And how old were you at that point? You were
I
seven,
guess I
eight,
was like 13.
8th grade? Wow, yeah, it's 13.
I
Wow.
was like 9th grade, 13. I was like the
Okay.
younger side, 13, 14, something like that.
Okay.
Um, and then I started drinking again. And so, anyways, I was always like a heavy drinker. Drinking was like always an issue. It never really meshed well with me. I
Mhm.
was blacking out a lot. I went into college, blacked out a lot, but it was all like fun and games.
Sure, sure, at the time, yeah.
I thought anyway.
Right, right.
But like, when you're drinking to excess like that, it's like, what are you covering up? What are you trying to escape? And I learned this later on when I finally gave up drinking. Everything that I was escaping for that many years came to the surface for me to
Sure.
look at.
You had
And I
to
was
feel it.
like, oh yeah, I have to feel it all. I have to look
Yeah,
at it all, and be there for
yeah.
myself through it, and not escape from it anymore. So
Mhm,
I mean, the
mhm,
addiction story like goes on and on for some years, but pretty much I got sober at 23.
mhm.
Um, I just decided one day, I actually woke up and I had a rash all over my face. This was in the middle of the pandemic. So, some years I was better than others. Like, some years I was just like, oh, just a glass of wine, it's fine. But the pandemic, I started drinking more, and like
Wow.
I couldn't deny it anymore. There was nothing else to do. All there was to do was drink.
Mhm, mhm.
And yeah, so I woke up one day and I had a rash all over my face. And it was pretty much like my inside screaming at me, and
Mm,
and I like couldn't deny it any longer. I was
mhm,
like
mhm.
literally killing myself, and my insides are screaming on the outside.
Right.
And I was always spiritual, like I always had yoga. I always had like a higher force working within me, and some awareness to that. Um,
Right.
but the addiction was stronger, I guess you could say.
Wow.
Um, and so yeah, so that day when I woke up with a rash all over my face, I was like, I can't I cannot keep denying this. And I felt fear arise, because I felt fear that I would fail again, because this wasn't the first time I tried to give up alcohol. I tried when I was 19. I tried some years later. And finally, I was just like, it's okay if I fail. I'm just going to take it day by day.
Mhm.
My boyfriend at the time was sober, and he was very supportive. And I got a what's it called? Not a mentor, but AA. They have a sponsor. I
Right,
got a
right, right, right. Yep.
started with AA.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the beginning of my sobriety and also like the beginning of my life. It changed my life. It
So
was
yeah,
the
I want to know more. Keep going. Specifically, I
Yeah,
mean,
sure. So,
yeah.
I mean, alcohol consumed my life. I thought it was me. I'm like, who am
Right.
I without this substance?
I see.
And
Right.
even
Right.
all of my friends were drinking with me, you know. We were all
Mhm.
doing this together to make it seem like it was like normal, you know. Which maybe for them it was, but
Right.
still you can hide.
Well,
So
society kind of accepts it as like, hey, it's a party, it's party time,
right, exactly.
It's, nothing
Um,
telling you how really wrong it is.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I was just ready for more, and I was done hiding, and I was done denying, and I finally made that decision and commit every day, and it was quite difficult, but it was so worth it. And it's like choosing yourself. It's like choosing life, and in that you make so much space for what's really meant for you. Because
Mhm.
if I'm wasting all my time drinking and spend like pretty much spending all my time with people who are doing that same thing, how can I possibly invite in what's really meant for my highest good if I'm
Right.
surrounded by those other energies?
Right.
Right. So that's exactly what happened. I kind of closed that door and opened up a new one. And all of these new infinite potentials opened up to me. I
Mhm.
started focusing on my business. I
Mhm.
started healing myself. I started attracting people into my life that were so good for me, like Davy Joe.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I just feel like I completely transformed. I felt like God was working with me every step of the way. And I
Mhm.
also used mushrooms to support this.
Mhm.
So the first like 2 months of getting sober, I was still taking Adderall. Um, and that one was like super difficult to get off of as well. But I
Was
started
that
doing
like a prescription med, or you were just kind of
it was a
recreationally?
prescription that I like weaseled my way into. It wasn't
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't it wasn't really necessary.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but so I started doing extensive research on microdosing. So I've done mushrooms in the past, but I heard that microdosing could be supportive, and I really wanted to do it the right way because I had tried to use mushrooms and it was supportive for a time. But I
Mhm.
feel like their consciousness, if you're not using them intentionally and with respect, they're
Mhm.
just like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. You know,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
you have to meet me halfway. I'm
Right.
not
Right.
going
Right.
to
Right.
fix all your problems, you know?
Right.
And so I started doing this research. I started really diving in. I learned a lot, and then I started putting it to the test. And I started combining it properly with other medicines as well to support me.
Mhm.
And microdosing was a huge part of my journey in the beginning when I was getting sober, probably like the first 6 months.
So, not to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
can you? I mean, I've heard the term microdosing, and I kind of even kind of surmise what it is, right? Taking a small amount of mushrooms regularly. But I mean, what is it exactly beyond that? Like, and how
Sure.
does it work?
So microdosing, actually, you can microdose many different things, but in this case, I am speaking about psilocybin mushrooms.
Okay.
And so microdosing is considered by Paul Stamets, like Paul Stamets is like the guru of mushrooms. So I go by what he says.
Hmm.
And he says that a microdose is considered like 0.05 grams to zero point 0.2. So it's a very small amount
Hmm.
that you take consistently for at least a month, right? Because it
Hmm.
takes about like 21 days for something to shift, for like a habit to change.
Hmm.
And what microdosing does over time is create new neurons and new synapses in the brain.
Hmm.
So it actually rewires the brain. It
Hmm.
works on something called the default mode network of the brain. So the default mode is like the way that we think about ourselves, thinking about the future, the past. It's pretty
Hmm.
much anything but being like present.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the default mode runs most of our lives. And so we're on this autopilot
Hmm.
and we think that we're making choices, right? But we're not actually making choices.
Hmm. Hmm.
Who's actually running the ship here until we
Hmm.
become aware? And
Hmm.
so I find that we can do this work on our own. We can rewire our brain without anything outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
But the mushrooms are
Hmm.
here to support us and
Hmm.
kind of like, I think, uh, maybe speed up the process, or at least it did for me with where I was at the time.
I gotcha.
So that's microdosing.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
Paul Stamets says to combine psilocybin with lion's mane. Lion's mane
mhm,
is another type of mushroom
mhm,
that activates neurogenesis in the brain. So it pretty much does something similar that psilocybin does, but without any psychoactive
mhm,
effects.
mhm, mhm,
And so when you combine the two, it really amplifies the medicine in both,
mhm,
as
mhm,
well as using a vasodilator. So he would say you can use niacin.
mhm,
Niacin, some may be familiar with that. It's a vasodilator, opens up the blood vessels. It can cause you to like maybe sweat and get a little like hives if you take too much.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I wasn't really like into that. I wanted
mhm,
more of a gentle approach. And I already worked with cacao, which is such like motherly, heart-opening medicine. And so
mhm.
I used cacao instead because it pretty much does the same thing in a more gentle way. So
Okay.
I combined cacao, lion's mane, and psilocybin, along with like a few other things that I know would support my brain as I was getting off of the Adderall. So
Gotcha.
that was like my microdose concoction
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
Gotcha.
myself. And I kind of shifted it as I like expanded and grew. I kind of added new things to it and really found like the perfect formula
Mhm.
for the brain, for heart health, for immunity, and for mood as well. So that's like what I have now. That's what I offer others now, is this
Right.
formula that's been like curated over many years.
Okay. And I've got, man, like so many questions are coming to mind. First of all, um, are mushrooms? I'm imagining mushrooms are not considered an herb, right?
They're a fungi.
They're a fungi. Okay.
Put the water all over my
Okay.
face.
Okay. And I mean, I know there's a lot of research. I don't really study it myself, but I know that there's a lot of different aspects to mushrooms other than the physiological ingesting of mushrooms, just in the way mushrooms communicate with each other, I know is a big area of study. And
Yeah, I
just
can speak a little to that.
yeah, the way that they're spoken about, it's like they're kind of in this their own category of
Yes,
thing.
yes. Right, so they're considered to be somewhere in between plant and animal.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, which is very interesting, and
Mhm.
they're also known to be one of the eldest species on the planet. So their consciousness is known to be, like, quite wise, very old,
Mm.
ancient wisdom
Mhm,
they carry.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And yeah, they're known to be living beings that we can really create a relationship with, that we
mhm,
can work with. They're like a mentor, teacher, friend, you know.
mhm.
So yeah, they're really powerful, and they're known as los niños, which is the little children. That means the little children because they're very
Right.
playful. They're very gentle and playful, and yet a tool for profound transformation.
I'm so fascinated with that whole perception of mushrooms and just the whole concept that they're beings and there's a consciousness, and it's really, I mean, if you can, and that all resonates with me for some reason. It's like I don't understand it, but you know what, you're right. I know that you're right. I know that that's what it is, and it's almost like an earthly connection to the mysteries of the cosmos. You know what I mean? Like, here on Earth, a manifestation of something that has that is a bridge. You know what I mean, between dimensions in ways. What are your thoughts about mushrooms representing an alien presence?
Mm. Interesting. I don't really think too much of it. I have no thought about it. But when you were speaking about like they have a consciousness, it
Mhm,
just made me think like everything has a consciousness.
mhm,
The
mhm.
water that we drink every day has a consciousness that
Right.
we can actually communicate with. And
Yep.
it's like there's a lot of research out now that
Mhm.
shows if you actually talk to your water, it changes the
Yeah.
molecular
Oh, yeah.
structure of the
Amazing. Yeah.
water, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're made up of water, if you talk to yourself in a certain way, you know.
Right.
And then you see plants, like they're conscious living beings, like we're surrounded by so much wisdom
Right.
that maybe we take for granted, you know, because we move about our lives so quickly that we
Right.
pass by all this beautiful consciousness, this life, and
Yes.
forget
I
that we
love
can
it.
like commune with it and learn from it.
I love that. And I feel like that aspect of being is what really makes it so mysterious and like wonderful, you know, at the same time. Just kind of understanding your connection to all of that. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And your part in all of that, you know.
Yeah. And one thing that you brought up before too was like how the mycelium network underground connects everything. It allows everything above ground, like the trees and the different plants, to
Mhm, mhm,
communicate. If
mhm,
you've ever seen like a mycelium network, it's literally like trillions of
mhm, mhm.
networks that
Right.
are connecting everything underground, and that's what it begins to do in the brain.
Mhm, mhm.
So, you can see like a brain on psilocybin and a normal brain, and
Right.
see how so many different parts of the brain are lit up and connected. So different
Mhm.
parts of the brain are communicating that don't usually communicate. So this is how it also enhances creativity and
Amazing.
things like that.
It's amazing, and it's amazing how that's even become kind of a part of, quantum physics, you know, studying all of that, and it's almost like a microcosm of, the idea of source, right? I mean, really, you know, which is so great to I guess to have a three-dimensional manifestation of something that we can connect to like that, you know? That's awesome. Wow. So I'm trying to think of so many other questions. So the first thing I asked you was if a mushroom was an herb. The idea that you took psilocybin and lion's mane, so mushrooms in all different capacities. Mushrooms aren't all hallucinogenic. They all have different uh, physiological effects on us if we ingest them. Or are there other ways to interact with mushrooms other than ingesting
Yeah.
them?
So when it comes to like plant medicine or herbs, you can really connect with them without ingesting them. There's different forms of let's say even like flower essence is just the essence of a flower. It's literally like one petal or one flower dropped in a big thing of water, and
Mhm,
you're connecting with the essence of that one flower.
mhm,
And that's
mhm,
how
mhm,
subtle it is.
mhm,
But also, I speak to a lot of my clients and say, like, you don't need to ingest the mushrooms to
mhm,
connect
mhm,
with the spirit of the
mhm,
mushrooms.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
But yeah, you can eat mushrooms, you can drink mushrooms, but that's really all I know.
Right. Well, and I guess, earlier on when you were talking about you being an herbalist and, you know, experimenting with all different herbs, the first question I thought, and you answered all this stuff as you were talking, was, are you talking about just ingesting? But you were also talking about making creams and different kind of tinctures for other purposes that you would interact with in other ways, but still, I guess, kind of through osmosis, interact with the herbs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So herbs, I love to make topical. Topical would be like anything
Mhm,
that you're putting on the physical body, because the
mhm,
skin is our biggest organ and
mhm,
it absorbs anything that we put on it. And
mhm,
I love to
mhm,
teach this because oftentimes we're like, oh, I'm going to eat really well, but I'll put all this toxic stuff that I don't even know what's in it on my body. So
mhm.
that's why one of the first things that I was creating was a scrub that you could eat, because
Right,
if you're putting it on your skin, you want to be able to eat it. It's getting
right,
absorbed into the bloodstream.
right, right.
Um, so I was going to say something else
Yeah,
about
and that's such a I just love that idea because I'm you know, I have so many feelings about, uh, the things that we buy and the way society runs, and in my ultimate fantasy, I live on an island and I'm eating pineapples for breakfast and, you know, sleeping under leaves and, you know, everything is organic, you know, um, but, now I lost my train of thought, what I was gonna say,
you got into a fantasy
I
land.
got into a fantasy little.
Leaves,
Uh,
and I'm wrapped up in leaves.
yeah, I was totally there. Well, that you know what, that's a good segue to talk about where you just came from. I do want to bring up your website here on a little ticker so people can see where to learn more about you. If you are resonating with Lexi and what she's talking about, there's much more to see there. I'm going to bring that up as well, just so people can see it. And you already talked about what intrinsic alchemy meant to you. And you also talked about some of your experimenting with herbs and stuff, so we understand some of your divine offerings here. Microdose
Ooh.
guidance, microdose intensive. Why don't we talk about what's next? What's the fire dancing all about? You did talk a little bit about just coming from a dance class. Oh, that was before, when we were just making sure everything was connected.
Yes. I'm
Tell us about
literally
that.
coming right from a heels dance class. So as I was walking through the door, I'm like, yes, I'm ready, because I was just like full with so much divine feminine energy. And I just felt so much gratitude for these spaces curated by empowered women to empower women. It
Mhm,
just like seriously lifts me up and fills me up so much
mhm,
to see women curating these spaces and to see women like embodying their sexuality, their sensuality, and exploring their expression. Because for
right.
so long, we felt guilt or shame around our
Mhm,
sexuality,
yeah.
and which has caused a suppression in our expression.
Mhm, mhm,
And so these safe spaces allow women to explore that,
mhm,
but again,
mm,
in a place where they feel safe too.
right,
And so coming from that, I was just like, yes, because that's my main mission. That's
right.
mainly what I do when I do in-person events, is I do a lot for women. And
Mhm,
it was
mhm,
really nice to be held and not be hosting something. So
right. That's
that was
awesome.
lovely. Shout out to the Fit Factory. That's where I was. And
Oh, nice.
shout out to Erica. She was the instructor.
Awesome.
Uh,
Awesome.
Shout out to my friend Jill for inviting me. Uh,
Awesome.
um, but yeah, so I think my first like in-person offerings really started with fire dancing, because fire dancing supported me so much in awakening to my power. And I think one of my biggest fears was holding space, was sharing my voice.
Hmm,
And in the beginning of really reawakening to my power, I started leaning into everything that I was scared of. So I was like, shit,
mm,
there's fear around this. That means I got to do it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So I just
totally.
started doing everything that I was scared of. And that was one of my first main offerings, because
Mhm,
I started fire dancing maybe when I was like 19, when I first went to college,
mhm, mhm,
sometime around then. I got my own hoop, and it just really reawakened me to my power. I think I can say it
yeah,
empowered me, and I
right,
wanted to share it, because for so long I like played with fire once, and then I was like, well, I can't buy my own. I can't like do this on my own, right?
right,
And one day
right,
I was like, why can't I? And
right,
I just bought the hula hoop. I attached the things. My dad watched me as we were in my like my the parking lot, and
right,
no idea what I was doing, but over
right,
time I figured it out. And
sure,
the point is that there was like fear and resistance around something, and I thought it was too much, but it
yeah,
was actually like I could handle it. I could totally handle it.
right,
One of the biggest things was just getting over like, how do I start? Right. And what are the fundamentals that I need to know to be safe while doing this?
mhm,
So
mhm,
I created this space for those who were fire curious,
mhm,
and who wanted to like dip their toes and know how to create a safe environment
right,
for them to do this on their own. And so it's really for beginners. Like I've had ages from 8 years old to like 80 years old
wow,
with fire. Like
right,
anybody can do it. And I have
right,
a range of so many different props for people to tap into. And it's actually quite a ceremony. So in the beginning, there's like a whole fire ceremony where
right,
we give thanks to the element of fire,
awesome.
because this is another part of existence that we often take for granted.
I love that. Yeah.
Like we cook our food with fire, we
Mhm,
purify our
mhm,
water with fire.
mhm,
Fire warms us during the winter. We use
mhm,
this element of heat so much in our
right,
lives,
right,
and even light, right?
right,
So we take a moment to really like connect with this element and give thanks and
Right.
gratitude and just offer it its space to be present with
I
that.
love that.
And then dance with it. And
Right.
dancing with it, there's like such an awareness with that. You're so present when you're dancing with fire.
Right.
So I've just seen so many people like, fear it at first. And then
Sure.
that same thing, they like do it even though they're scared of it. And then they
Yeah,
realize they
yeah,
can do it and they're like, yeah. And then they're like
right,
a pro with it. And it's just like,
right.
I love to witness people stepping into their power and doing
That's
something that
awesome.
they were a little
Yeah,
scared of.
and I love I mean, flow arts is such a it is really a creative, outlet for people because I know some people who are really talented and you can see the connection that they have with it. It's a real way to connect with source and express yourself, for real, when you do. You know what I mean? I think some people just like it because it's visual and they just do it and they try it and you know and it still looks good and I'm sure they're still getting that feeling, but there's some people who and I'm imagining that you're quite a fire dancer, so that's awesome. And I love the way that you're talking about just that whole approach to not just fire dancing but life. You know what I mean, taking for granted certain things. I've definitely started, every time I get in the shower, the minute that I feel the water on the back of my head, and just run down my face, I'm just like grateful for the water, and I kind of connect with the water, just momentarily and thank it.
Mhm.
And I do find that to be um powerful, a way to just connect, and it's like just a little spark of power, you know what I mean? Just a little like, oh yeah, shit, I'm alive. I'm grateful. I get where this water's coming from and I get, what it's giving to me and all of that stuff. So that I just love that as a philosophy. And the other thing that you were saying, and I want to address some comments here, but the other thing that you were saying that really resonated with me too is, and has been popping in and out of my universe and my thoughts, is the idea of comfort zone, the idea of fear, the idea of taking on these things that you would never want to do, because you just don't think that you can, or there's something there that you're just like, oh, that's not for me, but in reality you do want to do it, and you can do it.
Yeah.
All you got to do is try, right, to and just let yourself be in that energy. So you were talking about earlier, the idea of water and how you can talk to water and the things that were in water. And Jilly said that's a great name for a book, the hidden messages in water. So
Love that.
Jilly, get on that. I know you've been looking for something, and you're coming up with all these amazing things. She always comes up with these amazing ideas, but wants to give them to other people. Here, do something with this, and it's like, no, Jilly, it's your turn. You just manifested that. So write that book. Julie's also a photographer. She wants to play and shoot
Oh,
photos
awesome. I'm
and
always open to photographers coming to my dance classes.
awesome. Oh, well,
Yeah.
let's talk after the show about that because I
Okay.
definitely want to come down. Julie looks like she wants to take a class. She's fire
Awesome.
curious here. Uh,
Ooh.
and Tim is saying, as someone who was a firefighter for a time, he did a different kind of fire dancing.
Oh, I
LOL.
imagine. Yes.
But
Thank
you
you
know
for your
what?
service.
I'm sure that Tim also has that same respect that you do for fire and what it is and the energy that it is. And you brought up a good point. I like I said, I do thank water, but I don't thank fire, and I think I'm going to have to start doing that because it's
Mhm.
so true. And again, just the idea that you're about to embark on something like a fire dance, uh, and really acknowledging the different aspects of what you're about to do and being grateful for it. I just, again, I love all of that. That's just sounds so awesome. So also, I was going to get to this before. There's so many things to talk to you, Lexi, about. How did this all lead you to Thailand?
Mm. So actually, Davy Joe led me to Thailand. I had one. That was on my bucket list for a long time, and I do a lot of solo traveling. But
Hmm.
Thailand was one that I was like, it's far away, and
Hmm.
I'm very particular about who I travel
Hmm.
long distances with and for
Hmm.
long periods of
Hmm.
time
Hmm.
because I'm like, if I go to Thailand, I'm going for at least a month, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And it just so happens that Thailand was Davy Joe's like favorite place. So we got the opportunity to travel to Costa Rica 2 years in a row, and Costa Rica is like my place. So this year was kind of our opportunity because pandemic happened. It wasn't the best time to go. So yes, we led a retreat in Thailand, but before we did that, we had like 4 weeks to just explore. We went north, we went south, we spent our time on an island. When you're speaking about pineapples, it brought me back. We studied Muay Thai. We
Love
like
that.
there was just like naked beaches everywhere. So after Muay Thai, we would go, we'd use
Take
our
off
hands,
your clothes.
eat the food, and then just like bathe in the ocean. It
That's
was so
awesome.
beautiful. And it was a
Yeah.
beautiful time for us to really just be together because
Yeah.
we did so much work together as well. So we got
Mhm.
all this playful time in, and then we got to host our first retreat, just us together, in Thailand with 9 other amazing individuals. I just am so grateful for the group we had. Everyone was so incredible in their own way and brought so much light and
I
love.
love that so
It
much.
wouldn't have been the same without them.
I love
But
that.
we explored mountains and waterfalls and caves, temples. We met elephants. We were able to give back to this beautiful school in Thailand. We were able to connect with the
Wow.
kids and give them a lot of supplies that they needed. They were sharing a toothbrush. There was 41 of them, and every girl and every boy shared a toothbrush.
Wow.
So all of our retreatees donated, and we were able to get everyone a toothbrush. We were able
That's
to get them
awesome.
all new shoes, all new pants,
Wow.
soap, all of these things that we use every day, you
And
know?
we take for granted. Right. Yeah.
So that was definitely a highlight, was
Awesome.
getting that opportunity to give back and connect with these kids. It was so
Amazing.
precious. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, every moment of that retreat was so special, and we're doing it again next year because afterwards we were just like, this is an every year thing. This is like a full body yes, I want to do this every
That's
year.
awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I find myself I haven't been to Thailand. I haven't been to Costa Rica, and both of those are places I want to go. Over the last bunch of years, have just financially haven't been able to really make those things happen. But I'm working on it because when I was younger, I traveled a lot, and Aruba was my favorite place for a while. I went there a couple of times, but when I went to Hawaii, I really connected with Hawaii and swore I would be back there. I actually was thinking I might live there for a little bit because I don't know, something there is calling me. So I'm going to be back there. Hopefully next year I can come with you guys to Thailand because I definitely,
Ooh,
it looked so much fun and just such a great way to connect. I think the other thing too is when you do a retreat like that, there's so much intention from each of the participants that like you said, everyone brings so much to the table. I find again, the spiritual community, that's what I love about it, is these events where you just have so many amazing energies in one place, and then magic happens, you know what I mean, just because that energy is all gathered together with that intention to make it happen,
yeah.
some sort of cosmic thing. Oh, and Tim is telling me, Tim is in Brazil, he says don't forget to put Brazil on that list.
Ooh,
Yeah, I would definitely go to, that was already on the list, Tim. We've talked about that. So um
Brazil is on my list.
yeah. Again, I think I'm excited because I will definitely be able to travel the way I want to very soon. So this is um this is just in my head. I'm just thinking comfort zones. I'm thinking all of these things that are actually holding me back from exactly when I see folks like you and Davy Joe, I feel like I see my reflection in so many ways, but I also I see the inspiration and the things that I need to maybe address within myself, because I feel like for me, and I never ever talk this way, but my spirits, my guides are have been screaming at me, let the fuck go. You know what I mean? Like just let go. And I see that in people like you and Davy Joe and Sunshine, who have just kind of let go of um these limiting beliefs, you know what I mean? And I can say it out loud that those are things I'm working on, you know what I mean? And those are things that I can see in myself, and recognize, and it's just working out. Okay, how do I get past it, and I think this is a part of that. The live stream of consciousness, is a big part of that. I've connected with so many amazing people, been able to have conversations with amazing people, totally unexpected. I had Tommy Chong on the show,
Oh,
which was an amazing conversation. Oh, one of the things you said before, I had this amazing author on the show, Lori Ladd, who wrote this book called The Divine Design, and she talks a lot about dimensions, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, all the way up through the 12th dimension, and energies, and all of these different things. And we were talking about this earlier. You said everything has a consciousness, right? And you were talking about really physical things. You were talking about plants, you were talking about animals, you were talking about the air, you were talking about all of that. But one of the things that I discovered with her in our conversation is that she wrote this book, and it was really popular, and she was gaining a lot of popularity. A lot of people were reading it, and I was reading it, and when I was reading it, I didn't feel like I was reading a book.
mm,
Felt like I was connecting to a consciousness. and
yes.
and so we realized that just by her writing this book, she created a consciousness that now exists in the universe and touches other people just by being in the form of this book that she wrote.
Mm,
And it is a consciousness. And again, that was awesome for me, because here I made my show called The Live Stream of Consciousness, and all of these synchronicities happen in the conversation. So it's just amazing. It's just awesome to
mm,
talk about this stuff. Uh,
mm,
Sunshine says all the things that Lexi does has beautiful intentions. The retreat flowed beautifully. Yes, it
mm,
absolutely. It looked like it did, and I think there's something about connecting with human, a really ancient human vibration, when you're exploring caves and in the jungle with monkeys, and like you're there. There's no cement. There's no wi-fi, there's no things around you that separate you from that. There's no choice but to connect with it. You know what I
mm.
mean? That's so beautiful. That's just uh I'm jealous. No, I'm not. I say these things out loud, and then I'm like, no, don't give that energy. You're not jealous. I'm actually, you know what? Here's the thing. I say that because there is this human part of me, but I am literally and genuinely super freaking happy for you. When I look at that stuff, I don't feel jealous in a bad way. I don't feel like, oh man, how come they're there and I'm not? I feel like that is so awesome. Look at and I vicariously can experience that energy through it. So I think I'm
Mm,
blessed in
yeah.
that way. I think I'm blessed in that way. I say the words like I'm jealous, but I don't really vibe the vibes.
Right, it's almost like the words in themselves are just a habit of saying,
Exactly,
right? Don't
exactly.
actually hold any substance.
It doesn't. I don't vibe the vibe of jealousy. I don't. And that's why I think when I say it, I'm like, no, don't say that because you'll give it power. But it doesn't have power, to me. Which is, again, one of the things that I am happy about, and why I feel like I'm a part of the spiritual community, even though I don't look like it necessarily. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I certainly feel like it. I love, the show started because I had so many friends who were resonating with so many different modalities, that were really just their connection to source. And to
mm,
me, that's what I saw. And like I said, I saw the reflection of my own connection to source in that,
mm.
so
That's
that's why
beautiful.
we're here. Yeah. Um, so it's been amazing talking to you. We're coming up on about an hour. I don't want to take too much of your time. I
It went by
really,
so fast.
I know, right? And
Yeah,
there's so much more that we can talk about. It's it's
I
it's
know.
just amazing. Um, let's talk about if you have anything coming up before I ask you for some wisdom to share with my audience. What do you have coming up? Anything that you can push
Sure.
right now?
Yeah, I actually do have something coming up.
Cool.
Mid-April, I have a big commitment coming up. It's a microdose journey. It's a group mentorship in person, and we meet every Sunday for
Hmm.
6 weeks. So it's a big commitment,
Hmm.
and it's created to really support those who are ready for deep transformation,
Mm.
who are ready to get honest with themselves, to look at
Mm.
themselves, and to
Mm.
release the negative cycles, the patterns, habits, conditions, whatever's holding you back, to really look at that, to
Mhm.
get honest about it, and to let it go and create the
Mm.
foundation for new seeds to be planted and to really blossom into who you're meant to be. So I'm really
Mm.
excited for that. And you can reach out to me personally. It's not on my website. I do a lot of my promoting on my Instagram, Tigers period EYE period 1111 Tiger's Eye.
Oh, I wish I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, and I found Alexis Mucci, which was like definitely not you.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of fake ones out there. I'm 1111, and, but there's other Tiger's Eye pretending to be me as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Instagram is getting to be a little weird like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, especially
But,
in
I
the
do a lot of my
spiritual.
promoting on there, and
Mhm.
so you can, find out more. You can email me, you can go to my website and, whatever you gotta do if you're interested in that. It's gonna be a really profound journey and a big commitment to yourself.
When does that start?
April 16th. It's a Sunday.
I gotta
It's
look at
the
my calendar.
Sunday after Easter.
I gotta look at my calendar. That may be something I need to look into. You said a couple of things. You said something about just letting go, which is something that I said.
Yeah, yeah.
You said a couple of things that were like, I think she's talking to you, Michael.
Mhm. And
Um,
something you, mentioned before too, whatever it was, you were just being honest with
mhm,
yourself,
sure.
and I feel like honesty is key,
Mhm,
right? Like, so often we deny parts of ourself that we don't
mhm,
wanna look at, and
right.
whatever you were talking about, you were being honest. You were like, "This is
Mhm.
a part of me that I'm ready to let go of,"
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I just think while you were saying that, I was like, "That's key." Just
Mhm,
honesty,
mhm.
that's really all we need.
Thank you, Sunshine. Sunshine is giving me a visual reference of your Instagram.
Yes, thank you,
Um,
sunshine.
Thank you. You saved me from having to run and type it into a banner and try to get it up and produce this show. Um, so, something we'll talk about it afterwards. I don't know if it's something you're interested in, but I know my audience may or may not know this. Is I have been really like taking this whole idea of this platform right here and teaching people how to do it themselves,
Mm,
setting them up with the graphics and a nice intro and animation and what I do, but really, um there are some people. There's this woman Carrie Ann who just started a show. It's and my girlfriend Janice has been doing her own show, and man, it's just so great to watch people evolve from doing something like this, and open up and be able to, people who are normally shy and won't talk to people and are like you said, fearful. Something that I felt was my gift, because I knew so many gifted people. I'm like, well, I don't talk to spirits, or I don't, read Akashic records. What do I do? My gift is this. I help people to feel comfortable in their own power. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm an empowerer, in a similar way. It's interesting you were talking about all of the things that you do and how much you love empowering women, and I love that so much, and I agree. Women have just been, kind of made to feel a certain way. I have, as a man, I have experienced women who, on all these different levels, and some of them, like, are very uncomfortable with their sexuality, and understandably so. And so it's so great to see women in general coming into that. I, as a photographer, um I I love to shoot women, as well as, like, experimental lighting stuff and all of that. But it's totally an empowerment thing. I mean, I love to let women see who they are, and fortunately for me, allow them to be comfortable enough to be that, because I couldn't do what I do without them, and to allow them to see themselves in that way is just
Yeah.
great. I did a calendar for 6 years called Women of Armageddon. And it
Ah,
was it was just this weird vision I had of, well, what if the world ends? What's going to happen to the swimwear illustrated calendar? And so it was like this Mad Max meets Victoria's Secret kind of spoof,
awesome.
but it was so awesome, and like it really taught me so much. So many people were drawn to it. The girls who worked with me on costuming and on makeup and everything. It was just such a great experience, and it allowed me to express myself in a way as a photographer taking picture of women that showed exactly where I was coming from.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
it really.
This is actually like the beginning of my empowerment, was being behind the camera.
Oh, really? Tell
Yeah, yeah.
tell me
I did a
more.
lot of sexy shoots, and this was at a time where I was like super depressed and hated
Mhm,
my body, insecure about myself.
mhm,
I had a lot of image issues growing up,
mhm,
and being behind the camera with someone who I trusted, being the
mhm,
photographer, was so supportive to me really remembering my beauty and stepping
mm.
into my
I love that.
expression.
I
So
love that. Yeah,
for your work, because it's
yeah.
so supportive for people empowering themselves and
Mhm,
remembering their worth. And
mhm,
a part of like sexuality, I love to like bring sexuality back to its like home, right? Because
mhm,
women have a womb, and this is the center of creation,
mm,
sexuality,
mhm,
creativity.
mhm,
um, I mentioned that already: creativity, power, sexuality.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so our sexuality is just like kind of an expression of our creative force.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I feel
mhm.
like when we like kind of unite with that, we remember our power. So
Yeah.
that's why I love kind of creating spaces for women to empower themselves in expressing their sexual nature.
I love it. I love it. I always get a little depressed, like, oh, I wish I could do that. Like these events are so awesome. And you know what? There should be, and I know that they are popping up. I think is Davy Joe doing anything for men particularly? I think I saw something recently. Was that him?
He's gonna start for
Yeah.
sure because
Yeah.
he feels really called to doing men's work. So they'll
Yeah.
definitely be popping up. So keep your eye out. But
Awesome.
I do feel called to do like something shared,
Mhm,
mixed with all beings.
mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
so yeah, stay tuned because
Nice.
I feel
Jill's
ready.
asking, when is your next retreat?
Ooh, my next retreat. I do have something planned, or it's in the midst of being planned. So keep your eye out, but it's called Untamed Retreat.
Ooh.
It is for women
It
only.
is for women, which
For-
Jilly's next comment is the pussy book.
yes, there is a book called Pussy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's a
I'm
great.
not familiar with it.
Yeah, check
Awesome.
it out.
I think sex is a super powerful force, because it's a way that, uh, 2 people can connect on such a level, that can transcend, just one person, and really, for me, in my experience, it's such a amazing way to connect with source. Like it really is, like, what's his name, Trent Reznor said, you get me closer to God. It makes so much sense, and I think that, um allowing women to understand that haven't understood that's got to be super powerful. That's really awesome. That's
Yes,
really
it really
awesome.
is an honor.
Yeah. Totally. Well, like I said, I think, I want you to stay in the green room after I sign you off. But before I sign you off, I want you to, if you can, or if you want to, offer my audience, the audience, anyone who might come across this in the future, some words of wisdom on how to, exist a little bit better.
Hmm. Hmm. I almost feel like the idea that we need to exist as something other than what we already are right now takes us away from just
Ooh.
being in this state of bliss. So maybe
Mm.
today, in this moment, right now, we can accept, embrace, and love ourselves so fully, so completely, and we can know that there's nothing else, nothing more that we have to do or be, that
Mm.
you are fully love, that you are fully and exactly all that you ever need to be right now. And if we can exist in this way, knowing this all the time, then yeah. I think
I love
that's
that.
really all we need to
I
do.
love that. I love that. Just the way you answered that question and kind of saying, well, the question's not exact. Like you made me think about what I said. You know what I mean? And you're right. Like it's not advice on how to be better. It's it's one of an infinite perspectives connecting with the other infinite perspectives, but
Mm.
just sharing a perspective. I love it. I love it. I got to think. It's great to really want to think about the words that you use and what you say to people and how you communicate and how it affects that interaction. You know what I mean? Not only how it affects that other person, but how it affects your self. You know what I mean? Because I want to give. I just saw Sunshine's name on the list. I do want to give her some credit because you were talking about your story, and this goes way back. I don't even know if you remember, but you were talking about how stopping drinking allowed you to really feel all of the things that you weren't allowing yourself to feel. It came into my head, and I didn't get to say it, but Sunshine, you've got to feel it to heal it.
You gotta feel
Is what she said. I
it.
didn't want to take credit for that. That's a nice little tagline that Sunshine and I came up with, or Sunshine came up with. But
Mm.
that's the truth. Um, and again, that little tangent made me forget what I was going to say originally. but I love speaking to you, and I hope to meet you in person. And actually, I have met you in person. We haven't actually had a conversation, but
Oh,
I was at a kirtan at where was it? One of the beach up
the
by.
Funky Home?
What's that?
The Funky Home?
It might have been with the Funky Home. Hardy was putting it on.
Okay.
I know Davy Joe was there. I think you were there as well. It was on one of the beaches, but I know that we've been in the same room at the same time, probably a kirtan or something like that. I know that's also one of your specialties. Um, so I'm just looking forward to that next moment. And you know what? I would love to have you back here just to go deeper into some of the things that we just barely touched upon. Um,
Yes, I would love that. It's been such a joy and
awesome.
honor getting to speak with you. I really
Awesome. Thank you so
enjoyed
much.
every moment.
Me
And I
too.
think I'm gonna see you at my next fire dance class. I think you're gonna do some photography.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
If you want,
That
of course.
I definitely am. So thank you for being here. I'm going to put you in the green room. I'm going to sign off. I will see you in a minute. All
Thank you
right.
for listening, everyone. Many blessings.
Take care. Whew. I always have a nice exhale after one of those awesome conversations. I love that I've put myself in this position of meeting and connecting with these amazing souls. And I love all of you guys for being there. Hat Powder, you did miss it, but you could always watch the replay. Thank you for coming. Your intention on being here is felt. And enjoy the replay because it was a great conversation with Alexis Mucci. You know what? I have to look at my calendar. I don't know who's next week. Oh no, I do know who's next week. Next week I have a very, very interesting guest. Okay. This guest coming next week is from the spin-off show that I created with Courtney called Strange and Wonderful. And my guest is named Rachel Stout. And Rachel Stout is a transgender woman who has a relationship with a doll and a human. And when I interviewed her the first time on The Strange and Wonderful, it was one of the most amazing conversations I ever had. I literally felt my heart expand and my brain expand and my being expand just from talking to this person. I never expected it. That was the first episode of Strange and Wonderful, which is another show that I'm not hosting anymore, but if you want to look it up on YouTube, it's a great show. Courtney, who used to be a viewer of the live stream, talked me into helping her start up that show, and it became an amazing place like this to have amazing conversations. So thank you guys for being here. That's who's going to be here next week. Hope you guys will join me, and I will see you there. Peace.